As the U.S. lines up UN support for military action, a warning.
War is not neat, it's not tidy, and once you resort to it, it's uncertain, and it's a mess.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw, reporting tonight from NBC News headquarters in New York.
Good evening. Tonight, the United States plans for the Persian Gulf are a tale of two cities. In New York, the administration is on fast forward at the UN, moving toward tomorrow's vote on military action. In Washington, Congress is on go slow, let the sanctions play out. NBC's John Dancy is in New York tonight. John, let's begin with the UN action.
Tom, I'm here at the Soviet mission to the United Nations. Foreign ministers from most of the Security Council countries have begun arriving here in New York. Secretary of State Baker and Soviet Foreign Minister Shevardnadze are meeting to put the final touches on the UN resolution.
But the resolution, the draft that has been prepared, is a strong draft, a strong resolution.
Earlier today, the way was cleared for the Security Council vote. The U.S. Ambassador Thomas Pickering, this month's president of the Security Council, apparently headed off a Cuban move to delay the vote. The Cuban ambassador said he would vote against the resolution in any case.
For our part, we will not support it. We consider it a clear violation of the UN Charter.
Meanwhile, Chinese Foreign Minister Chen Chichun, on his way here from Beijing for tomorrow's session, said his country would not vote for the resolution. But the U.S. expects the Chinese to abstain, thus avoiding a veto. The resolution sets a January 15th deadline for Iraq to withdraw from Kuwait. If they don't, member states will be authorized to use all necessary means to make Iraq pull out, meaning force. White House spokesman Marlin Fitzwater said today the resolution does not demand action or demand any kind of declaration of war. It requires 9 votes to pass, and all indications are the U.S. has at least 11. In Iraq, officials rejected the resolution even before it passed. Deputy Prime Minister Taha Ramadan said George Bush is leading the entire world to a ruinous war that could last years. He called on Bush to come to his senses and initiate a dialogue. Here in New York tonight, Secretary of State Baker is making a last-minute appeal for more votes at the UN when the resolution comes up tomorrow. He's even meeting with the Cuban foreign minister, a highly unusual meeting, Tom.
Thank you very much. John Dancy in New York tonight. And while that was going on in New York, congressional Democrats and senior American military men were working on a different wavelength. The administration has been ignoring Congress, and that may have backfired. NBC's Andrea Mitchell is on Capitol Hill.
At Senate Armed Services hearings, that left the playing field to critics of military action, including 2 former military leaders.
My main concern with this latest scheduled reinforcement isn't that we might choose to fight, but rather the deployment might cause us to fight, perhaps prematurely and perhaps unnecessarily.
If, in fact, the sanctions will work in 12 to 18 months instead of 6 months, the trade-off of avoiding war with its attendant sacrifices and uncertainties would, in my estimation, be more than worth it.
Also today, a stiff warning from the House Majority Leader.
We should stay the course, stick with the sanctions, and not try to mount an offensive military action in the near future.
And in sharp disagreement with the president's policy of having no contact with Saddam Hussein, a leading member of Congress is now urging a dialogue.
I think the important thing is that you have a channel of communication that is clear and unambiguous and at a very high level.
Perhaps most ominous, a warning from Henry Kissinger that the size of the deployment may make war inevitable.
I don't think you can get away from the basic premise that you're advocating that the United States go to war, and go to war soon.
I do not believe we can maintain 400,000 troops there much beyond the spring of next year. Probably I would not have put this many troops in to begin with, but they are there now, and I think our national interest is now involved.
These hearings have been very sobering for many members of Congress. They believe they must speak out forcefully now to stop what appears to be a march toward war. Tom?
Thank you very much, Andrea Mitchell on Capitol Hill tonight. As chairman of the Armed Services Committee, Senator Nunn is one of the most influential members of Congress on the Persian Gulf, and after conducting his day of hearings, he's with us tonight from Washington. Senator, in your judgment, is this administration rushing the military option?
Tom, I feel that we should reserve the option of having a rotation policy. When you put over 400,000 troops in the middle of Saudi Arabia, as our military witnesses testified today, and also as Secretary Kissinger testified, you're lighting your own fuse as far as the time clock is concerned. We can't sustain those forces there for an indefinite period of time, and I think time is working on our side up to this point. I believe that we can prevail, and the one thing we're united on is that Iraq has got to get out of Kuwait, but putting this many forces over there begins to make the clock work against us and begins to undermine the patience that we need to be able to successfully implement the embargo.
Senator Dole says there's a 50-50 chance the president will call Congress back before Christmas. He'll then, no doubt, put that UN resolution before you. If he does, would you vote for it or against it?
I haven't seen it yet. We don't know the wording of it yet. I imagine if it's like most UN resolutions, it'll be very broad. I consider this a good step, though, a positive step by the United Nations in telling Saddam Hussein that his actions will not be tolerated, and also saying that war is justified. I don't think, however, that makes war wise from our point of view. Most of these countries are voting to let the United States use our forces to go to war and suffer most of the casualties. We have to consider whether that's wise at the moment, because we represent the men and women who would be doing the fighting.
Senator, do you agree with Lee Hamilton, the chairman of the House Foreign Relations Committee, that we ought to have a presidential envoy go to Baghdad to speak directly to Saddam Hussein?
Tom, I'm not privy to the diplomacy going on here. I haven't gotten into that, and I believe there are other channels open. I'm not sure you need a special envoy. We have other channels open, and frankly, with some of the very tough statements that have been made by our government, I believe that it'd probably be better for other governments to do the talking, but I certainly don't object to a dialogue if there's a framework for that dialogue that would allow the implementation of the UN, overall UN mandate. I think it's very essential as we have this debate, and I think debate is necessary, that it not be misunderstood. There's a unanimous opinion on our Committee on Armed Services, Democrats and Republicans, that Iraq must get out of Kuwait. We're really debating whether to administer the pain in a forceful way with a war, or whether to administer the pain to Iraq with the embargo over a period of time.
Senator, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
I'll be back in a moment on Nightly News with the story of how the American military is moving up and getting ready. And on Vital Signs tonight, would your insurance company pay for new experimental bone marrow treatments for breast cancer? It's a growing controversy.
There's just something about a Canon color laser copier. Maybe it's the way it makes drawings come alive, or the way it captures the sharpness and detail of photos. Or it might be the fact that Canon has the world's most advanced digital technology. Whatever it is, it makes quite an impression. The Canon color laser copier, the digital difference. Call toll-free, 1-800-OK-CANON.
They're at your Christmas store. Sears. Name brand electronics like this 3-lux Panasonic camcorder for only $799.99. Only at Sears Brand Central for Christmas.
Here's 2 cold medicines. Choose one.
Sudafed.
Now choose again. This relieves these 3 symptoms, this 9.
The 9.
You chose
Dristan. It relieves 9 symptoms of my cold, as opposed to Sudafed that only relieved 3.
Dristan relieves 9 tough cold symptoms.
If war does come to the Persian Gulf, how will it unfold? NBC's Rick Davis in Saudi Arabia has learned how some American military plans might be carried out.
Huge military convoys are moving north to reinforce U.S. units near the Kuwaiti border. Military sources say 5 to 7 days of aerial bombardment would precede any ground attack. The day and night bombing raids would hit at least 31 primary targets in Kuwait and Iraq. Targets will probably include installations on the Iraq-Jordan border to prevent any air or missile attacks on Israel. Military planners want to keep Israel out of the war, fearing its involvement could crack the Arab alliance against Saddam Hussein. Following the bombardment, air assault units expect to lead the attack. They are now edging north toward Kuwait. Helicopter pilots are ready for action.
It's a noble profession. I'm proud to be a part of it, and I trust my leaders, and I trust that UN Council. And whatever they've got to say is fine by me.
But an attack may not include all the multinational force. Egyptian and Syrian commanders say they will not enter Iraq.
You can be sure that the American military commander and all subordinate military commanders will say, well, I'm going to base my plans on the assumption that I'm going alone.
A leading Muslim scholar believes the Saudis will take part in a full-scale war because
What we have got is a freak called Saddam Hussein, a crazy idiot that is threatening the whole world, peace and economy.
Americans are confident that British forces will be a major factor. Troops are now rehearsing for trench warfare, and the Foreign Office has advised British civilians to leave Saudi Arabia over Christmas. Many Americans may do the same. Rick Davis, NBC News, Saudi Arabia.
In this country today, Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan told Congress that the jump in oil prices caused by this Gulf crisis has pushed the U.S. economy into what he called a meaningful downturn. He said the gross national product will probably show negative growth for this year's final quarter. In Southern California, the Gulf crisis oil boom has sparked new production off Point Arguello near Santa Barbara. As NBC's George Lewis reports, environmentalists now are wary.
$2.5 billion worth of offshore rigs have sat idle while oil companies, environmentalists, and local officials battled over safety questions.
We should have been producing this field at full capacity a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Now, 118 days into the Persian Gulf crisis, with oil running at $33 a barrel, Chevron says limited production from Point Arguello has become economically worthwhile, using an existing pipeline to move 20,000 barrels a day. The company says it could transport 4 times that much oil if it had permission to use tankers. But environmentalists oppose that because of the greater risk of spills.
What Chevron is doing, indeed, is depriving this country of much-needed domestic oil on the insistence that they can make a few cents per gallon more profit by using tankers rather than using a pipeline.
Around Santa Barbara, they're pretty leery of oil spills. In 1969, a blowout at an offshore rig owned by Union Oil fouled local beaches for 1 year. The opposition to oil tankers is heightened by the more recent memory of last year's Exxon Valdez disaster.
Our long-term position is that there is no safe way of tankering oil through the Santa Barbara Channel, that if there is a collision or a spill, there is no way to clean it up.
While the debate rages over the Point Arguello oil, some conservation groups contend that the real bad guy in this tale is not necessarily Chevron or Saddam Hussein.
And the public has to share some blame for the fact that we act like drug addicts when it comes to oil, and oil is our drug of choice, and we use it like it's not going to ever run out.
Once again, Californians debate whether their energy consumption habit is worth the price. George Lewis, NBC News, Los Angeles.
On Wall Street today, Chevron's stock closed up 1/4 of a point, while the stock market generally moved lower in moderate trading.
Ford profiles in quality, customer satisfaction.
Today we realize that quality's got to be #1. I said that back in '82, and today it's truer than ever.
The looks attracted me, but the performance sold me.
After 2 years, it still shines like new.
We love hearing things like that. The only thing better than a Sable
is 2 Sables.
Our goal is to build the highest quality cars and trucks in the world.
At Ford Motor Company, quality is job one.
The Remington microscreen shaves as close as a blade, or your money back. Hold it. The Remington microscreen is more than closeness. Listen. That powerful motor makes Remington a quick shave, and its 2 thin, flexible screens adjust for true comfort. The Remington microscreen, quick, comfortable, shaves as close as a blade, or your money back. Attaboy. That's Remington. And the perfect gift for women is the Lady Remington Rechargeable, also with a money-back guarantee.
You know what I like best about going on vacation? Eating out. So on this vacation, I'm dining my way from San Juan to St. Thomas, from Guadalupe to Caracas, from Cozumel to Grand Cayman. It's all included in the price. But what I really like about this vacation is that my favorite restaurant goes everywhere I go. Take a 3, 4, or 7-day fun ship vacation on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world.
Tonight on Vital Signs, experimental cancer treatments. Doctors are finding that more and more cancers can be treated with bone marrow transplants, but insurance companies are reluctant to pay. They say there's not enough proof that these treatments are successful. NBC Science correspondent Robert Bazell.
A year ago, when she was 28 and she had just given birth to her second child, Kelly Whittington learned she had breast cancer. She underwent a mastectomy, radiation, and chemotherapy. But this year, the cancer returned.
We thought, wow, you know, I don't have too much longer to live, and just having a newborn and a 5-year-old, you know, it was extremely upsetting, but we got ourselves on our feet and decided we could and we would beat this thing.
Kelly's doctors told her that her best chance was an expensive new treatment called autologous bone marrow transplant. The doctors remove the patient's bone marrow, freeze it, and then return the marrow to the patient after the patient has been treated with massive doses of cancer-killing drugs. But the transplant treatment has become the focus of a fierce debate about lives, money, and medicine. Kelly and her husband Mike found out that their medical insurance would not pay. Many insurance companies are refusing to pay for the transplants.
We can't be out spending companies' money and insurance money for any doctor who comes along and says, I have a wonderful new cure for this kind of cancer or that kind of cancer. We have to have some evidence.
Kelly and Mike's neighbors in Hagerstown, Maryland, raised the money she needed to be admitted to Georgetown University Medical Center for the transplant.
Here are the funds that they told me that I needed to come to the hospital with. There's 110 in the check, and 14,000 more will be coming from church tomorrow to make the total of 125,000.
The money got Kelly the transplant, and so far she is doing fine. But was it worth it? The doctors carrying out the transplant acknowledge that in most cases, the treatment does not save the patient's life. But doctors who believe in the transplants insist they are a life-saving chance for a woman with advanced breast cancer.
If it was clearly established that this treatment had a 2% chance of curing a patient and they had no chance without it, would that be worth it? To the patient, it sure would be. To the doctor offering it, it's pretty hard not to offer a treatment that's clearly curative. Is it worth it to society? I hope so.
At the present time, we just do not have evidence that autologous bone marrow transplant is much better than standard treatments.
People like Jackie Magger are not interested in the doctor's debate. Her breast cancer also has returned, and her insurance company refuses to pay for a transplant.
When you're told that this is your best shot, and somebody steps in and says, no, we're not going to pay for it, I don't see how you could be anything but angry and bitter towards them, because I have a right to live. I'm 38 years old, and I have a lot of years left.
Jackie has not decided what to do next. Many patients with advanced breast cancer are suing their insurance companies to try to force them to pay for the transplants. Often the patients are winning. To try to stop that trend, Blue Cross and Blue Shield recently offered to pay for clinical trials to find out whether the transplants are effective. But for now, most patients want what Kelly Whittington got, the treatment that she believes gives her the best chance to live. Robert Bazell, NBC News, Washington.
A report out tonight, by the way, says that about 20,000 Americans in the prime of life die each year from illnesses that can be cured by routine medical care. It says that almost 80% of those dying prematurely are blacks.
What is it that makes the world so great? Is it the beauty we see everywhere we go? It is. But probably what really makes the world so great is people. We think the same way about our airline, United. Come see what dedication is all about. Come fly the friendly skies.
Freedom's the one. Only one gum leads the way when you've got dental work, and that's Freedent. Freedent won't stick to your dental work, so you can be confident chewing it. And because it also moistens your mouth and freshens your breath. Now, Freedent's in a class by itself.
Freedent's the one that took the stick out of gum, and Freedent moistens your mouth. Yeah, moistens your mouth and freshens your breath while you chew.
Non-stick Freedent moistens your mouth and freshens your breath.
They're at your Christmas store. Sears, great craftsman gift ideas. Like this 30-foot by 1-inch tape measure. Hand tools made in America, guaranteed forever. Only $6.88. Only at Sears for Christmas.
I have rich taste. I love the rich flavor of Sunsweet pitted prunes. Plump, tender, irresistibly sweet. I can almost taste them. Good idea. Only one prune tastes Sunsweet.
Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev won't be traveling to Stockholm next month to receive the Nobel Peace Prize in person. He'll be staying home to deal with a bad economy that's getting worse. NBC's Bob Abernathy.
In Leningrad, a package from Germany, food and clothes for Soviet children. A plane load from Germany is due tomorrow and a truck convoy Friday. In Moscow, President Gorbachev and German officials discussed how Germany's aid could be distributed, and Gorbachev's spokesman expressed the Soviet Union's mixed feelings.
We are grateful, but we don't want people to think we are beggars on our knees.
Soviets who remember World War II also have mixed feelings about charity from Germany.
For those who fought in the war, it's very difficult to receive this aid.
Moscow officials said today the food situation here is critical and reported just 60% of normal supplies of milk. A man who wanted milk was furious.
You should get another director if you can't get milk here on time.
There's no doubt about severe shortages in state stores. The question is why, when many wholesale supplies seem adequate. Answers include hoarding, black marketeering, and a breakdown in deliveries because individual Soviet republics and enterprises are ignoring delivery orders from Moscow and making independent deals with each other. For Gorbachev, accepting foreign aid could mean new attacks from his critics.
They're going to be able to say that the only way he can get his economy running and his politics working is by foreign charity.
On the other hand, with shortages everywhere, the more help Gorbachev gets, the stronger his position, if he can deliver the food to the people. Bob Abernathy, NBC News, Moscow.
And what about the American economy? Well, John Chancellor has been thinking about that in his commentary tonight. John?
Tom, what this country needs is a new word. The economy is in trouble, but nobody knows how to describe it. Things are terrible. The invasion of Kuwait has driven petroleum prices up 65%, which means businesses and consumers have less to spend on things other than gas and oil and 26 shopping days till Christmas. Why does the country need a new word? Here's why. The old rule says, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. The economy is walking like a recession and quacking like a recession, but you can't call this a recession. A recession has a precise meaning. 2 consecutive quarters of no economic growth or negative economic growth, and that hasn't happened. In fact, the economy was still growing in the 3rd quarter of this year. Peculiar, but true. So we need a new word, a definition for a time when it ought to be a recession, but isn't. Let's call it a regression. Regression fits in nicely with recession and depression. Recession, of course, is when you lose your job. Depression is when I lose mine. Regression is what we have now. The dictionary says regression means a shift toward a less perfect state. On the money. We're in a regression. It's a better word than slump or lull and a lot better than a meaningful downturn in aggregate output, which is how the experts put it. The regression of 1990. And the way things are going, it will soon be the regression of 1991, too, Tom.
Thank you, John. Another word, expensive. Tokyo, Japan, in first place, and probably wishing it weren't. It is the most expensive city anywhere in the world, according to a study ranking the world's 89 major cities. The costliest American city, 41st on the list, you guessed it, New York.
Most credit cards advance you cash, but then immediately take interest back and keep on taking it. But now you can get cash interest-free with your Discover card. Just pay your balance every month, and for a small transaction fee, we'll give you the cash interest-free. So take it from us. instead of giving it to them. It pays to discover.
What do you call a car that has learned to use the wind? A car designed to settle in when you race into it head on and stabilize when it buffets you from the side. Road and Track called it one of the 10 best cars in the world. But it is probably better known as the Infiniti Q45.
So, you're back with the 4 juice glasses.
Well, not everyone's tried Sunsweet prune juice yet.
Hard to believe with your charisma.
Hard to believe when Sunsweet has more of 7 important vitamins and minerals than these juices, and Sunsweet tastes great.
Sold me.
This is the way it has always been. The sun has always blessed the land, and our ways have always passed to caring hands. Taste that purity and goodness in every jar of Smucker's preserves and jellies.
Here's a great big idea.
Salad shooter.
From Presto, professional salad shooter slicer shredder. Big capacity and power. Special blades to point and slice thick, slice thin, shred, even ripple cut. Right where you want.
Salad shooter.
From Presto.
In the East, at least, it's been a wacky fall, more like early September than late November in New York City today, which has a lot of folks talking about global warming here and now. But NBC's Robert Hager was with the National Weather Service today, and change may be in the air.
When surveyors of caterpillar fur in Kentucky, Ohio, and North Carolina predicted a hard winter in the East, there were doubters, and shrugs when the Old Farmer's Almanac said the same. With temperatures in the East at near-record highs this week, it was hard for many to imagine a cold winter ahead. But today, the U.S. Weather Service finished poring over its computer projections and maps and agreed with the caterpillars. It said the jet stream, normally here in the winter, will likely shift in late December, making it cold, a colder winter than normal, almost everywhere east of the Mississippi. That brought cheers from eastern skiers like Joan Ellis in New York.
If the forecast is saying it's going to be cold, it's going to be a turn to the good old days. I can't wait.
But it made others, like Albany's Richard Silber, worry.
And then the heating costs will go up substantially, yeah. I'd say about 20–30% based on past history.
By contrast, the Weather Service predicted a warmer than normal winter in the Rockies and on the West Coast. It predicted wet weather along the East Coast and Gulf, and in the Northwest, easing the Oregon drought. But dry through the nation's midsection and no relief from the drought in Southern California. Los Angeles resident Gertrude Stern was skeptical.
I don't know if they're right or wrong, because I don't think they know themselves. To make a statement that's a very broad statement, that we're not going to get any more rain.
The Weather Service doesn't claim to be 100% accurate, but hopes its satellites and computers are a little more reliable than caterpillar fur. In any event, it notes its predictions last year for a warmer winter were right on the money, more or less. Robert Hager, NBC News, Washington.
The weather caveat. That's Nightly News for this Wednesday night. I'm Tom Brokaw. I'll see you tomorrow night.